Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Is this microphone working? Hello? No, actually, it's better if it's a little higher up. Thank you, panel, for attending. Okay. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Gerard, you've been with David Letterman a long time. Did you write the Oprah bit from the Academy Awards?
That was improv at the very last minute, apparently, as he was about to go out.
I see.
Rob Burnett.
That one was really Dave's fault.
That was really well.
Okay. I think the people in this audience are interested in knowing what it's like to write for late night comedy shows, an audience of drunks and sleepy people, and what it's like to work in the service of the person who's on the air, the person who, needs your help behind the scenes but doesn't need you to be on television with him. Gerard, why don't you start and talk about your relationship to David Letterman, because it goes back so many years.
Wait a minute. I hope this man. I hope he's involved with the operation. Just a fan. I don't know. I think two things that I think people starting out may not realize about a show like ours is, number one, how very collaborative television is. Mm-hmm. I mean, there'll be some pieces on our show that are from the very beginning to the end of one person's vision. He goes down and edits and picks everything. Others where there's input from maybe 10 writers on a given piece. The other thing, and this is where a lot of people don't realize and get in trouble, I think, you're writing for one particular voice and one particular vision, and David Letterman has a very distinctive sensibility, and he's not going to do certain kinds of jokes, and that's the kind of jokes that you really enjoy writing. It's probably not going to work. You're not writing for yourself. You're not doing stand-up. You're doing something where you are generating tons of material. I don't think anyone who's not involved in it realizes how much material is wasted in the average late-night program. I mean, how many reams of material are generated to get a certain amount of stuff, just in the opening monologues alone, just 100, 200 jokes, whatever. But I think the collaborative thing is the thing that's hardest for some people to work with other people and to fashion something and not be too married to one given piece of one given idea.
Well, you were telling me before this about how far back you go with Dave, and it's something like 30 years.
Sure.
I mean, were you successful for that long period of time with Dave because you're essentially like Dave? I mean, is that what you have to be?
I'm not as cranky as Dave.
Okay.
I don't think, but I don't think very
many.
You
share his views, his comedy approach.
I thank you.
His background.
Sure.
Perhaps?
No, not background. No,
okay.
Not at all. I was a very repressed Irish Catholic kid.
Okay.
And he was a fairly repressed Midwestern Protestant kid.
Okay.
We both got married and divorced early. Mm-hmm. Other than that, he did
from
stand
each
up.
Other? No, from someone else. Okay.
And obviously, we have a very similar take on things, or it wouldn't work. I wouldn't be able to write for him.
Steve Young, you also work at the Letterman Show.
Yeah.
You don't go back as far as Gerard, but tell us about your role at the show and what you do there. I mean, are there specific assignments for you writers at the Letterman Show? Are you like the top 10 list guy, or the shove the bear in the closet guy, or how does that work?
I actually did invent the bear in 2000. It was like a one-shot thing. Al Gore was coming to be on the show because it was the 2000 campaign, and we needed some things. Let's see how the Late Show is getting ready for this important dignitary's arrival. And I said, how about we shove the Late Show bear in the closet? And so we showed it that one time, and then it was forgotten about for 5 years, and then I don't know who mentioned it to Dave some day the past spring, and he said, oh yeah, we ought to bring that bear back. And then suddenly it's in heavy rotation again, and it's getting more and more elaborate, and you just have no idea when you come up with a tiny little thing that it could mushroom into something that takes over. And it's great if it does, because then you've suddenly, for 52 shows in a row, you've got part of the show taken care of, and you're always looking to fill up the minutes. But in answer to your bigger question, most writers are involved with most parts of the show.
Okay.
There are a few people who are specific monologue writers, and in fact, the staff monologue writers at the Letterman Show live in California and fax things in every day.
No kidding.
And there's also a batch of freelance monologue people, and they can live pretty much anywhere, and they just fax or email as well. And I was asked to head up the monologue. I wouldn't call it quite a department, but I'm in charge of the monologue for
So
the
you
past year
sit
and a
near
half.
the fax machine. And
Yeah,
you get the faxes.
but it only takes up, on a good day, 2 hours of my day.
Okay.
And so then there's like 8 or 10 hours left that's not monologue, and that's writing whatever the main comedy piece of the day is, or writing one for the future, or writing things that the camera crew is going to go out and shoot.
Well, you see, this is interesting where people can become contributors somehow from far away. I mean, are these people that went through an interviewing process and were hired by David Letterman, or are these just people who, over a course of years, contributed jokes and somehow got them in the monologues? I understand, Jay Leno has some of these people as well for his monologue.
Well, in the case of Dave, his main monologue writers are a pair of guys who go back to, I think, around 1969 with Johnny Carson.
Oh, okay.
And when Johnny was going off the air, I think Dave thought, well, I can maybe get a little of that legacy continuing.
They've been doing it a long time then.
Yeah.
They keep up with the current events and everything, hopefully.
Oh, no, not at all.
They don't.
That's why there's so many
They're
Jimmy
doing
Carter
jokes about the
Jimmy
Kennedys
Carter
and
jokes.
Kennedy
and
administration.
DeLorean.
DeLorean's a big factor.
Chris Albers, tell us a little bit about working for Conan O'Brien. What's he like? And as everybody knows, Conan O'Brien is poised to become the biggest star in late night at some point. Perhaps David Letterman might even retire, and Conan O'Brien in 2009 is going to become the host of the Tonight Show unless NBC comes to its senses. And so, what's Conan actually like? And I would like to ask you, I mean, are you and the staff preparing to move to California? Is this what it's like? You're sort of like in orbit around Conan and you kind of go where he goes? What's that like?
Well, it hasn't been officially announced that the show is going to L.A. I think we assume it will, just because...
that's true, you're right.
That's
He's
where
taking over, but they may not move to Los Angeles if Conan wants to stay here.
And the way that it was announced was that this show will continue through the end of 2008 calendar year.
Okay.
And then the Tonight Show with Conan will launch the summer of 2009. So the week that that story broke, I was actually stuck in Florida visiting my family during a hurricane, and that was the first broadcast television that I saw after a day and a half of just eating birthday cake. And it said O'Brien gets a Tonight Show in 2009, and didn't really understand what that was. And then for about a month after that, that's all we talked about. And then we realized, man, that's a long way off.
Yeah.
And so it's not in our day-to-day thoughts anymore. I think we assume he will go there, and we assume that much of the staff will go with him.
Okay.
Some of us are in New York on purpose and don't really want to be in LA. So I'm a person who has tried my best not to work in Los Angeles because I love New York and I'm not so fond of Los Angeles. But he's and also I would just say about the Tonight Show, I mean, I think everyone, including Conan, knows that there's only one Johnny Carson and that there's only one David Letterman, and I think that Conan is honored and thrilled to have this opportunity, but no one believes he's going to put those guys in the dust, and I think he's just thrilled to have the chance to do it.
What's it like to, let me phrase it another way though, what's it like to work for the boss, the guy who's out on stage? And I mean, does Conan call you in his office many times during the day and go over material you've written and reject it, or what's it like? I mean, I imagine the host is the last word and the autocratic editor of what he is supposed to say, and I imagine it's sort of the same with Dave. Sure. What kind of give and take is there during the day? Does he send you back to the drawing board a lot, or what?
As Jerry said, each show and each host is a different voice, and it's run a different way, and everything trickles down from the top. And I've been fortunate enough to, my first job was with Dave, and he's the whole reason that I'm doing what I'm doing, because he was such a huge influence. And I was never a full staff writer on the show. I was a person who was writing monologue jokes for him, and he was paying me per joke. And that was just a thrill when he did anything of mine.
Yeah.
But Dave is not the kind of guy that you go palling around with and just...
well, is Conan?
Conan is probably of all those guys the best in terms of that, in terms of being able to talk to him as a normal person, and they're all a little weird. They're on television every night, and everybody looks at them differently, treats them differently. But he and most of them have writing experience. But Conan worked as a writer for a long time before he got his success, and I think that is a big difference. Is he knows what it takes to get that kind of response out of you, whereas people like Bill Maher that I worked for. Felt that you motivated by screaming at people and
belittling them.
Yes.
How did that work? I mean, well, seriously, was that successful, or did it just make people unhappy and not wanting to actually perform and do good work for him?
Well, I think it didn't affect the writers in that sense. I think the writers always have enough pride, had enough pride on that show
in comedy
to want to do a good job, but it doesn't make for a great work environment always, but you're not going to subvert the show by not doing your best.
Is Dave a yeller?
No, not at all.
Okay.
First of all, Dave has buffers between himself and most of the writers. I mean, he doesn't hang out with the writers in the writers' room very often.
I'm one of the few writers who actually sees him on a daily basis as sort of holdover from years ago when every afternoon he would review the monologue jokes on cue cards. And,
so I hang out with Dave a lot.
He really likes dogs.
It's weird.